Okay, I can't resist this story. A missing African gray parrot named Nigel is back home with his owner, but Nigel, who had a British accent before he disappeared, now speaks Spanish with a slight Panamanian accent. Nigel, who by the way is also the name of the person who wrote this copy, disappeared about 4 years ago, but a family found him recently and took him to a veterinarian. A microchip enabled the vet to locate Nigel's owner. Within several days, Nigel started speaking English again with a proper British accent again. I guess you can go home. But he reportedly still talks about a mysterious person named Larry. Well, a new biography explores the fascinating life of the fashion icon Coco Chanel. Arise News book editor Marva Allen is here to tell us about that book and some other great ones. She always brings great ones. Hey, Marva, how about that?
How are you?
How about that Nigel story?
That was hilarious. You know, I'm afraid I have to take you from London to France.
I don't know what's funnier, a bird that has a British accent that comes back with Spanish, or walking around asking for Larry.
That was amazing. That was amazing. That was amazing.
Okay. All right, let's get to the business at hand.
Let's move on over to France.
Yes, let's talk about a legend, Coco Chanel.
Mademoiselle.
Mademoiselle.
And I mean, you know, 51 years after her death, a bottle of Chanel No. 5 sells every 3 seconds.
Wow.
That's the kind of influence that this woman had on fashion. And coming from a child who was orphaned, you know, in France and not very educated, she started out as a milliner, but she had an amazing personality. She had an authority with people in power, and her love life was rather very, very enticing. From Igor Stravinsky to Westminster to a few ladies to, you know, and it goes on and on. But regardless of all of that, she has created a pulse on history that today we still very, very, very much are appreciating. And, you know, I have a personal little story because when I was writing my first novel, I used the name CC because of Coco Chanel. You know, so
nice.
I have had a long admiration for this kind of woman.
I bet this is a great read.
Yes, Rhonda Garlick has done an amazing job in telling you about Coco Chanel.
Okay, very, very good. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. An icon for a completely different reason. Cornel West has written this book, Black Prophetic Fire.
And you know, what an intellectual. You know, he has always been an intellectual, sometimes a little bit off the ball. And in this book, Black Prophetic Fire, his premise is this, is that Du Bois, you know, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and so on, these were the intellectuals who sort of talked about the black story. And today, black folks are only interested in money and fast cars and fancy houses, you know, and I see his point, you know, but we have to move on, you know. It's like back in the days when authors could only write about slavery. Now you can write mystery, now you can write romance. I think as we mainstream, as the culture mainstreams into the larger culture, these are natural things to happen. And I think we need to move on from this rhetoric sometimes. You know, we need to give due to who are those wonderful people, the Du Boisians, and so on. But we also need to recognize reality. And so, you know, Dr. West, I adore you, but, you know,
but he's not ready to move on with this book.
Yeah, it's time to move on.
All right,
it's time to move on.
So there's your review and
yes,
your commentary.
And my commentary.
And then finally, for those who love to read, everybody knows who James Frey is, especially if you were in Oprah's book clubs. He's got another book out.
He's got another book out, and you know, of course, Million Little Pieces that caused all the controversy. He initially said he sent it in as a novel and got rejected, so he changed it up, and then, of course, all the story. But his next 3 novels have proved that he's a great writer, and Endgame is no less of a feat. This book has already been, you know, signed for a movie. Google has made a game about it. It's extremely intellectual and extremely powerful, actually, you know, and it uses anagrams and it uses puzzles and it uses, so it's highly skilled work here, you know, and so you can't argue with the fact that James Frey is a great writer. And this is about 12 nations that are going to compete for Earth. And they have to play this game, and whoever wins, it becomes Endgame. They have to find 3 keys, and through the use of these anagrams and these puzzles and these mathematical formulas and so on, they get clues into doing that, and whoever wins gets to decide what's happened to us on Earth in Endgame.
Fascinating.
Very fascinating book. Very, very fascinating.
All right,
Yes.
Marva, all good stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
All right.
And that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow for another edition of Arise America. Bye-bye.